to fend off anything that would come against us. We said earlier, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And one reason that is obviously because of the covering that we have with the Holy Spirit, with Christ. Another way is obviously taking care of your physical body, your physical needs, and being, able to resist anything that would come from a medical point of view. So keep all that in mind. Well, let's talk a little bit about where we are from an Intell perspective, because this is one of those calls where we're funneling information in from a number of different sources, and everything that I have heard has been out there. You have to take some of it into consideration, and you have to see how it holds up with the direct information, the direct so-called intel that I would get, and you measure it against what you seem to know. And it's not easy. This is a tough time, guys. We're in a very interesting time while we wait for this blessing to manifest. I can just tell you that there is some information, or let's go back and say it this way. Have you guys noticed how we had it's actually called a Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, paycheck. It was payroll. They switched it to paycheck. Paycheck Protection Program, right, which would be done through the SBA but worked through your local bank, your small community banks, and all the way up to the big Tier 1 banks. Okay? Now, there's a bottleneck with that I think at least two levels. There's a bottleneck at the bank level because they're being inundated with applications, and there's also a bottleneck with the SBA that's really not set up to handle this type of volume of applications. There's something there. Now, notice how you have that from a forgivable loan aspect on the one hand, and then you have our $1,200 for an adult making less than $75,000 a year, $2,400 for a couple married, and $500 additional for each additional kid they have under 18. So there's an opportunity, and I don't know if that maxes out at a number where it goes all the way to 2 or 3 or 4 kids. I don't know what that is. But the point is you've got that program, okay, and then you also have the loan program, and then you also have another program which is based a little bit more on sort of an immediate need for $10,000, that kind of thing. There's at least 3 different programs right now. But have you noticed that nobody seems to have any money from any of them yet? Nobody's received a check. Nobody's received a direct deposit. And we were told a couple of weeks ago that these would be coming, maybe even longer than that these would be coming soon, fairly quickly. I thought we'd get direct deposits in about a week, but obviously we did not. Now, here's what I think is going on. I know those are coming. I know that they will get through some SBA loans, and they'll put those funds out. I've been told about another week to 2 weeks to get those out, and there's a huge stack of applications essentially ready to be processed that may have been processed, but the funding hasn't taken place. Now, the same thing is true for our $1,200 stimulus checks or direct deposits. And it's interesting to me that both of these are sort of in process, but nothing has happened to get the funds out yet. I think, this is only a theory, and I'll get into some other intel in a second, but this is a theory I have. My theory is that those funds will go out as we are getting started setting our appointments or going into our exchanges. I feel like they may be that closely tied together. Now, here's what I understand. The Tier 1 group, the Tier 1, which is governments, is supposed to be being paid monies by Dubai 1. And that's a number of boxes of bonds that have been hypothecated in Dubai and are supposed to pay out to, Dubai 1 is supposed to pay out to at least to Tier 1, maybe other tiers, but at least Tier 1. And that, I believe, needs to take place before all of those government funds come out. But it could also be that our exchanges kick that off, because just from a very few, let's say you could count these Zim exchanges on two hands, 10 or less Zim exchanges, with what is created from that is enough to fund these programs. So I just think there's something tied to that. We'll see. I may be wrong, but I just have a feeling, a gut feeling that we are tied to it more than we think. The other thing is that we have heard that CMKX was supposed to pay out Monday, the 13th of April, and a Treasury source we have has said they've moved it up. They were going to move it up to Friday, and now we're hearing it's moved up to tomorrow, Wednesday. Now, if that were to happen and CMKX does get funded tomorrow, then I think that moves us along a little quicker. We've got a window that seems to be from tomorrow all the way through the following Wednesday, which would be the 15th of April. And if, this is the old if-then statement, if the CMKX is paid, that should trigger the rest of the intermediates to be paid and therefore move us along a little sooner. A Tier 1 banking source told us yesterday that our first crack at this would be tomorrow. And that means, our first crack at getting the notifications and getting started was for tomorrow, Wednesday, the 8th. And I thought, well, that makes sense. China loves the number 8. 8 is their number. We thought maybe something could happen today, but it looks like maybe tomorrow. Okay, we could all make it. We could all make it to Wednesday. And then that same source, that same Tier 1 bank source today is saying 2 or 3 days after Easter. Well, Easter is the 12th, 2 days is the 14th, 3 days would be the 15th. So that could push us to 14th, 15th. Now that's as far as I have anybody putting it out. That's as far out as I have it. A possibility of something starting tomorrow, which I think will be more likely to be the CMKX and maybe some of the groups getting started, some of the intermediates, that is. And then maybe we do go after Easter in the 14th, 15th range. Now, something miraculous is supposed to happen Easter Sunday. Something big. We don't quite know what it is. We guess it could be this or it could be that. We don't really know. But seemingly, something is geared around Easter. We know that, now let me say this. My source, my main source, is telling me that we finished the 3 days of darkness last night at midnight. In other words, it started Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and finished last night at midnight. I don't have that verified by anybody else yet. We're trying, but that's all we have is one verification of that. Now, normally I don't bring that up, but this is important. So, where do we stand on that whole concept of the 3 days of darkness and then bringing in shortly thereafter the 8 hours of broadcast television on the emergency broadcast network, which would be segments of 8 hours, 3 times a day in 24 hours for 10 days long. And they wouldn't be the same thing, I don't think, but they would be bringing out the disclosure of what we have been through ever since at least we were all born, and probably a little before then, and certain things that have happened throughout the years that were said one way but really were something else. I think there's going to be a lot to it. I'm very excited about that. I'm not sure exactly when that's going to start, of course, but we'll find out. It'll be something to stay tuned with. So my opinion is, and even though there's lots of stuff out there that goes against my thought, my opinion is that we will not have to face the internet being down or our cell phones going off. I am being told from my sources that we do not have to endure that. That's not for us. So we'll see. Now, will they be tuning up the internet? Will they be going on? Yes. What they're going to be doing is getting on and taking down the dark web, the dark sites. They will be doing that. And I don't know when that will have started. Maybe that's already started, but I think that will continue. And they may somewhat sterilize the net. We'll see. But in any case, I don't see that going down for us. It could slow down a little bit as they do what they need to do, but I don't see it going down and us not being able to go online. At least that's what I'm being told. So we'll see. So the timing that we've got is something could trigger as early as tomorrow. But I'm thinking it's more for CMKX and maybe some of the other intermediates. And then there's us, which the latest information I got tonight was 2 or 3 days after Easter, which would be the 14th, 15th. So there's a lot that has to come out. We know at some point the gold-backed dollar will be brought out. We know there'll be a discussion about gold-backed currencies, not just here but globally. And there will be more disclosure about cleanup on aisle 3. But, what is sufficient? What is actually sufficient before we go? That is the big question that we have to find an answer to. I feel like some of the things I've heard out there or read have not really been accurate. I cannot believe some of the things that have been put out as true. But, all we can do is literally wait and stay positive because we know we're in the zone for this to come out. We're in that period of time where we really do expect this to come forward pretty quickly. Pretty quickly. I have no idea of anything that would have to drag way beyond where we are now in this time frame around Easter. And we also understand that the St. Germain Trust is to be opened every year between either Easter time or Christmas, and I believe the St. Germain Trust will be used for funding something as well. I'm not sure at this point what it's going to fund, but it could be prosperity packages. I don't know, guys. There's so much out there. I just find it unusual that the funds that are coming from the SBA loans and the stimulus checks and direct deposits that we're looking for are bottlenecked right now. They seem to be in a holding pattern. And I know the president wanted us to start, at least I understood, that he wanted this to start between, let's call it now, and Friday. But I just don't know if we're going to see that. I don't know. Maybe we will. And with that, I'm going to turn the call over to Bob and say thank you, Sue, thank you, Bob, and thank you all the listeners all over the globe for listening in to the big call tonight. Bob?